Alright, in this video I'm going to go over sweet potatoes. These were planted towards the end of April, harvested towards like middle of September. Probably a 20-25 foot row. You can see that bare row. That's nothing in it. That's where they were dug out of. The heaviest one, there's actually a few, are about 5 pounds, which is quite large. You can't tell by how big. And we have about 3 of those trays, by the way, out of that. It's not just that one. There were 2 other trays, but that was the best tray. You kind of want to separate them, best to worst, so you know which ones to use first. But yeah, it's quite large. I believe the variety was called Orleans, or Orleans with an O. It's like an improved variety. We got it from a steel plant company, which I highly recommend. They're based in Tennessee. Put a link in the description, but they've been selling potato slips for decades. They also do onion slips as well. Onion seedlings as well, but really famous for their sweet potatoes. They have a handful of different varieties. They have a description of them, planting dates, and stuff like that. And they ship them to you based on when it's best for them to ship them to you. So highly recommend Steel Plant Company. But I just want to go over some tricks I've learned of doing this for about 8 years, and mistakes we've made, and things that have definitely made improvement over the years. So start at the beginning. First, you need, when you pick a variety, you're going to have a time. They'll be ready like 90 days, 120 days. So do pick those based on what, if you live in, like, I live in the southeast, zone 7B, so this isn't really an issue for me. But if you live in an area that has a much shorter season, you may want to go with that shorter, like 90-day variety versus a 120 plus day variety. So anyway, when you plant them, they do better if you make a little bit of a hill / a ridge to put them in versus the flat soil. So kind of hill it up, just a small little hill. Put your seedlings in. Your slips in, not seedlings. Your sweet potato slips in, and as they start to grow a little bit, before they start to really leaf out, and you can't really do it anymore because all the leaves are in the way. Which those are all the leaves, by the way, that have been drying out for about 5 days now. Mound that hill up a little bit more, and that'll help them develop sweet potatoes a little more evenly and a little higher up, so you don't have to dig down this deep. It makes them less likely to rot as well. They're not sitting as much of moisture. When it comes to fertilizer, your NPK, nitrogen, phosphate, and potassium, that last letter, that K, is important for sweet potatoes. They really do like a heavy amount of potassium. Now you can do that organically, of course, or if you don't care, you can do it, a chemical. Something like muriate of potash is the chemical version. An organic variety version, for instance, is sulfur of potash. There are some other options out there as well, but they really like that potassium, and without it, they're not going to develop roots very well, especially if you've grown them more than a few years. So, like, pretty much any new soil you open up with sweet potatoes that first year, they'll do great. But if you don't give them what they need that second year, after they've depleted that stuff out of the soil, the difference is night and day difference on the performance level. I think my dog over there is fighting for bugs in the watermelons. So mount them up with fertilizer, and then when to harvest them, like I've mentioned, you have different day lengths. You don't have to live by that, but if you leave your sweet potatoes in the ground for too long, they get bigger and bigger, and so you get a lot of rain. Sometimes they'll just pop. They get like to a maximum size, and they'll just crack and split and rot. And it's no good. You dig them up, you're all disappointed because they took all that room up in your garden, and half of them are rotten. So we were harvesting in mid-October, and this year I went with mid-September, which seems to be an improvement, and probably going to stick with doing mid-September harvest with end of April plantings. Seems to do quite well. So then the next step after you've harvested them, so don't wash them. That's a mistake. People rinse them off with the hose. That will encourage rot issues. What you want to do is just take you a dry paper towel and just wipe the dirt off. Not them clean, just try to get some of the dirt off. So after you get the dirt off, what you want to do is then they need to be cured. And the curing process is they make it too complicated. They'll say 80 to 85 degrees, 80 to 85% humidity for 10 days, 2 weeks. kind of unrealistic to create that type of environment. I've tried it before with in the bathroom with space heater and humidifier. I really didn't get any better results, so I wouldn't worry about that. Ideally, what I like to do is put them out in the sun or a shady spot outdoors for a bit where they're not going to get rained on, of course. Like, don't let them get rained on, and allow them to dry out for a week. All that dirt that's on there to kind of crust over, and some of the nicks and stuff and scabs on sweet potatoes to heal over, because they will heal themselves. They'll dry over those areas and create like a white film over it. Allow that skin to toughen up a little bit before you actually put them up for storage. When you just throw them in boxes, just put them in cardboard boxes. Some people wrap them up in like newspaper, put them in boxes where you can get some ventilation, and just stick them in a closet. But ideally, it's 55 degrees is the optimal temperature to store them at, with a 60% humidity. Kind of unrealistic, but if you have a basement, a crawl space, you can get a little bit more there. But if we weren't doing that before, we were putting them in environments for like 70 degrees, like 40% humidity, and they stored pretty well, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. This year they are going to go in the crawl space. So underneath the house, we built these. You see this little wood rack that they're on. We have 4 of those, and they have a shelf that they slide into. My wife built that. I can't take any credit for that. She did plans and did everything, and all the cutting and everything on her own. But currently underneath the house, it's about 72 degrees in the crawl space, and humidity is pretty high, 70, 80%. But as it starts to cool off, it'll hang around in the mid 60s, probably all the way up until December. And then when the coldest months, February, it may drop to like below 50s. Never really gets below that. You don't want them to go below 50. They can get cold injury and really shorten the life of them. That's really all there is to it. Think about the variety you're going to grow. Find a place to get them from, a really like steel plant company, or just if you don't want to, hey, just go to your local nursery and get some. They may have some. They do great if you heal them up a little bit with a hill instead of being flat on the soil. They love potassium. They are hungry feeders when it comes to potassium. Don't let them stay in the ground for too long. Don't wash them off when you harvest them. And when it comes to eating them, allow at least a bare minimum of 2 weeks before you eat them. Those starches need to slowly convert over to sugars. They're not going to taste the best because they're still very starchy. Sweet potatoes, right? That's where names come from. Those starches need to start converting to sugars. Ideally, you'd wait at least 4 weeks. I'll even say 6 weeks, which seems a little far, but allow them some time for that curing process and those starches to convert to sugars. And the warmer that curing process is, if you live in an ideal climate where you could do something like that process does speed up. Yeah, that's really all there is to sweet potatoes. Just experiment with different varieties that work in your area. There's some really cool ones. There's white sweet potatoes out there. There are some really cool Hawaiian purple ones that are very, very dark purple, very pretty. But I'll tell you, the purple ones are incredibly dry. They are incredibly dry. I don't like them. My wife doesn't like them. I have a sister-in-law who doesn't like them. Unless you can put like a lot of butter on them and stuff, which really isn't healthy, or something like that. Some people do like them. They are incredibly dry, versus your standard orange varieties seem to be the best. Anyway, till next time, I hope y'all have a good day.